today we are going to be recapping episodes 23 and 24, which were page 4 from our refined thumbnails. Okay.
So just as a little warning, this was an interesting page. It you'll see towards the end of this recap what we're talking about. Really kind of divisive, but what I'm trying to do here is again the lesson from the last page, which is trying to make sure the eye is going to direct back, from left to right, up to down kind of thing. So I'm thinking about how I can achieve that. And initially, I had the screwdriver in the hand, but I realized that wait a second, I want to make sure that we can see where this screwdriver came from. And so that was my dilemma in this panel, and you'll see I'm struggling to figure out how I can actually make it so that we know that they just grabbed it from a toolbox.
Exactly. We'd also talked about that when we go, and do the full size for page 3, making sure there's a toolbox somewhere in that nest area to kind of establish that the screwdriver came from somewhere in the space.
Yeah. And so I'm going ahead here with the second panel because I'm pretty certain I know what's going to happen. You can see me going back and putting the toolbox in there after Sarah gave me that suggestion. And so I pretty much know with panel 2 and panel 3 what I want to do, which is trying to get that door opened with a screwdriver and then having it not work. But that first panel was really bugging me.
Well, and then we sort of had to figure out as well with the screwdriver, is it, jamming it into the keyhole? Is it scraping at the door? Like, what is the motion going to be as Sam tries to break in with this tool, and what's going to happen with it? And making sure that we can represent that in a way that makes sense visually to someone who's watching it and also has a bit of logic along with it.
Yeah. And the other question I had was, how old is this doorknob? Are we making it um, from the 80s? Is it like a much older doorknob? So that was part of the conversation too. Like what was the thought in regards to placing this in a specific time?
Yes, exactly. And we had talked about the fact that the door will start looking normal, and then over the course of the pages might start to get a bit of a look to it that lets you know that it's almost coming alive, that there's an entity in it, that it's a bit creepier than it was when we started.
Yeah. And so that may actually, if you go back and I'm looking back to see if there's any, right? I'm making that note there. All right. Okay. Are there any places where I can show that the door is kind of changing? And there really aren't too many places. So page 4 is really the place where I can actually start to
Mhm.
think about, um, okay, we're getting a nice close up of the door here. I can actually show that it's changed a bit. Right.
And we
And then this panel below, we're starting to focus on the energy that is being released here, and you can even talk a bit about how you put that on the page notes for me in the script.
Exactly. And I was actually also just going to mention that the door changing over time, we'd really talked about on page 3, the set of panels where we have the door, like day, night, being a good place that we could start to slowly see the door
Hmm.
start to change in a place where you can see it right beside each other and notice something is off. Um,
Hmm.
and what Keith was mentioning too with this panel here, back to page 4, was really getting that, like, this is Sam's like descent into madness page, right? So we really want to make sure that we get this energy of where Sam, like, hair flying, banging, like everything about this has to feel frenetic, and like this is my last chance, like the last stand against the door, because he's tried everything, tried researching, tried, opening it, tried staring at it, and now we're just going to try and beat it open.
Yeah, and we've used sound effects in the previous pages, and this one we're going to start to amp up that sound effect, the use of it to really add another layer of how much energy and angst Sam is going through here, right?
Exactly. You can see it becoming a texture. So it's not just sort of sitting on top, it's built right into it, that it's almost like the walls are vibrating with the amount of anger coming out of Sam.
Okay, so I was talking earlier, it was a little prelude, a little foreshadowing. This panel here is the panel that was really, really, really hard to figure out what should be put there because initially I really liked what I had done with the first page or the first attempt at this, but then I wanted to see other ways of doing it. So you can see that I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's, we're looking down and the door's kind of like almost coming out, like it's breathing. Right. But then I'm like, okay, wait, no, maybe I want to go to the original, but, I changed it a little bit.
And part of what we were finding too was changing that panel was starting to impact the energy of the next panel. And we were reading it differently. So different scenes were making me feel like, the next panel was like a versus a giving in. And so we started going back and forth trying to figure out what combination gave us the right feeling to head towards the end of this page before we went into the next one. And this was a conversation, and this was a good example of why sometimes you need to walk away and come back, because we were kind of unsettled in terms of how this should go to give the right feeling.
Yes. We really just only solved it for when we went to page 5,
Yes.
right? Which we're going to talk about soon after we drop that next episode.
Exactly. So that took us to the end of page 4.